A lot's changed in the new year.
Is Gemini winning or is ChatGPT losing? AI is going to enterprise. Robots are all the rage.
Like ad spend in OpenAI, how did that hit everybody?
That is a huge announcement.
There's too much revenue sitting out there.
It breaks my heart a little bit, especially coming from OpenAI.
This is going to be the trend in healthcare.
But what you just described, Nick, was a way to establish more credibility.
I think that makes a lot of sense from a B2B perspective, right? The person who figures this little piece out to make it easier for the patient, they're going to be the ones that win.
Cool. We are live with another AI companion with my friends Michael and Suprit. I don't think you guys need introductions anymore on here. I think you guys
nice to see you again.
good.
Yeah. Good to be back.
Michael, you got a new job. You want to give an update? What are you up to?
Yeah, heck, has it been that long? So recently I came on board at a company called Leading Reach. We're based in Austin, Texas. It was a dream job for me. I'm the new chief product and technology officer. I've loved it. We do healthcare, so I'm really interested in the topics today about AI and healthcare. It's particularly relevant to what we've been working on so far this year, but it's a fun company. And like we were talking about before we went live, I'll be in India in a week working with a company that we just acquired over there. So we've been learning that team, learn their technology, and we'll put some faces with some names and do some deep dives next week when I'm over in Bangalore.
I love it. I love it. Suprit, you got any updates? I know you're actively looking for acquisitions, but I don't know. You're like the worst guest. You have like the worst social media presence. Like no one knows you, and you keep it that way on purpose. But you're so damn smart. I love having you on the podcast.
I appreciate that. I just throw a like every now and then just to make sure people know it's me.
Yeah, it's not your stuff, but you never like it.
No, I'm good. We spent last year making investments in some early stage digital health companies, which we're really excited about seeing where they go this year. But then, as you mentioned, now in acquisition mode, so looking for an opportunity to acquire a healthcare organization and kind of take it to the next level. So
love it.
Actively looking for those.
Well, let's get into it. So I didn't know what to title this podcast. We'll probably change it after we have this discussion, but I wanted to call it, is Gemini winning or is ChatGPT losing? I don't know if that's a good question to start us out. It comes off the article that was published, I think just last week by Verge that I thought it was a pretty good article where it was laying out, if the goal of these LLMs or these God models, so to speak, is to have unlimited access to cash, have the best model and the highest user base. And then there's a couple other things, in terms of access to data, that Google is the best position in that category. Do you guys have an opinion on, I don't know if you played with pro versions of Gemini. I know, Michael, you played a lot with Grok recently. Suprit, you're like a diehard ChatGPT guy. I don't know. I think it was like your first platform. You can't be bothered to change platforms at this point, but have you guys have you been tempted yet to play with any of the different Gemini models?
Yeah, we've been using Gemini because we are a Google shop. So at work, I've been using that a lot more because it's free and it's right there, and I think it's fantastic. I think that's a great question. Is Google winning or is ChatGPT losing? I think Google's made some strides, and then now you get into this: what's the use case? Is it for business? If you're on G Suite and you're using Google for business, probably going to be pretty good. If you're using Google for personal, that kind of consumer model, I think it's going to be pretty good. And then you get to these other use cases, which are either for engineering, which we can talk about later,
Yes.
Or maybe for design, for creative. There's probably a few other ones, but I don't know. Suprit, what do you think?
Yeah, a lot's changed in the new year, Nick. I've ventured out of my ChatGPT.
Look at you growing up.
No, yeah, exactly. I've started using Claude more and more. And I think it's probably no coincidence that they're, jumping into the healthcare space. So it's been mostly out of curiosity there. But I do like, Michael, you just mentioned it. There's like a personal and a business use for it, right? And I think that's going to define a lot of, or be the reason why people go one way or another. But Look, I think security concerns are pretty much a thing of the past. I think people have given up on this. So
Yeah.
if you like look at Gemini and the personal intelligence stuff and being able to connect my Gmail to my YouTube to my, photos and search, and if you're able to give me more relevant information and shorten that discovery timeline, then I'm here for it. I'm all in. So I think it just matter. It's gonna be an interesting road ahead with all these different platforms.
The Google personal intelligence, that's going to be the thing that makes me switch from paying for Grok to Google. Like that, I mean, and I was just thinking about it as we were, kind of preparing for this. I was like, I think that's it. I think my $20 a month is going to go to Google for a little bit because I want to see how well that works. Because I use Google obviously for Gmail. We use YouTube TV. I use YouTube Premium, which I think is the best money I spend every month is on YouTube Premium. So those things together, calendaring, all that kind of stuff, if it does what it says it's going to do, and I dug into it a little bit, it's not doing what I think we want it to do quite yet. I want it to be more of like an agentic orchestrator
Yes.
where like I see it as being like, okay, hey, go through my emails, check this, find so and so, and then send them an email. When I read into the Google personal intelligence, it's more like if you ask Gemini a question, it's going to have access to all of your email and YouTube and stuff like that. So it's going to give you a more personalized response. But I kind of want it to do some more things for me with Google or with calendaring. I think it's not there yet, but it seems like that's where it should go.
It does seem like that's where it should go. I think it's again, it's that whole agentic thing, right? Of go execute a task for me and make that easier. I think it's interesting how it makes sense for people who use Gmail, who are on YouTube, and now it makes sense for people who do all those things and have an iPhone because you're bringing these worlds together. We're finally,
If that works
not
the way
having
you
that
just said
that
it,
piece.
if you go down that path, that's what gets me to use a Google phone instead of an iPhone.
Yeah,
You do
I could see
that,
that being a
that starts to be cool.
Well, now that's okay. So, a couple interesting things we would point out. Let's stick with this one, but I want to come to the Apple thing. I want to talk about Siri, but first, just the personal intelligence release in January. So, the Gemini version plus version I use is corporate, right? So, Sure Oak has so I could not turn it on in that. So, I went to my personal Gmail and turned on plus for me, and I turned on personalization, and had to go through the gates of connecting my YouTube, my inbox, and my photos. And then I just playing with it because I only had a day like before we did the podcast. Like, what can I do with this data? I asked it, what podcast should I do? And it said like human performance for people over 40 years old or using AI for marketing.
oh
That's like
man.
mostly so there was a personal use case in there, and then it was my business. And that was the interesting thing to me. So it's beta now for plus users. And I'm thinking a large portion of the Chat GPT users are like people like my sister. Like they're out of the workforce. She's not using it a lot, so she's asking Chat GPT a lot like the advent of the internet. It was like, hey, let's
Yeah,
Yahoo it and see what
yeah,
it says about this topic. That's kind of like what she's using Chat GPT for too. Like, hey, how do I make sourdough cinnamon rolls? What's the latest? Who is Travis Kelsey? And who is his brother? Who are these people and why are they in the news cycle so much? That's what she's using it for. What will be really interesting to me is now that Gemini has this broad appeal and they put that into the free version. And as a marketer, okay, so now I'm going to have the purest intent data for search that I've ever had. I mean, that's remarkable to me. So like when I go into search, if I'm looking for AI, like enterprise SEO, it won't direct me to tools because it knows I'm not interested in that. It knows I'm interested in, enterprise SEO, like what agencies I'm competing against to have more visibility. So it's going to know specifically where I'm coming from on that intent. That is really powerful in terms of, hey, I'm just a regular Joe. I'm not using it for a lot of enterprise uses or technical uses. I'm not a coder, but like this is the service I'm searching for. There's going to be really imperfect intent data there. Like I don't think we've really seen in a while because like that access, like they've gotten so much better on grounding. So you have pre-training with what the model knows, and then it's doing these RAG pipelines. What is what's like augmented search? It's going just doing real live searches and is taking snippets from known websites and is putting that into the query to reduce hallucinations. It's been a lot better. Now this next layer is I've got augmented data from websites and I have augmented data now from personalization. That's really powerful.
Yeah, and then you touched on something that I forgot about when we were saying like, hey, it's connected to your Gmail, your calendar. I forgot it would be connected to Chrome too.
100%.
So it's going to know like your browser history, your search history, and then now talk about personalization. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah.
Here's a
They
perfect video
really,
for you, and here's an ad within that video for you.
that's right. Yeah. I was going to say they really swung things back in their favor, right? Like I think last year we did an episode where we were talking about the decreased search volume and how people are leaving Google and going to chat. And now they've made this world even better for themselves, right? Because like you said, I mean, people are looking up recipes in chat, right? They're
I
using
did that over the holidays.
100% what you would generally, what you used to put in Google or a search engine, you put in chat. Now with Gemini and all these personalizations and linking everything together, I think they've given people a path to come back to their ecosystem and then own and monetize that whole world through ads or whatever it is for them. So I think they've started swinging things back in their favor, which is pretty impressive in no
Yeah,
time at all.
yeah. The other thing I want to point on before we go on to the Apple news is that Google, the vertical integration, this is like a playbook out of Elon Musk, to go, reverse vertical re-engineer, like reverse engineer, making TPUs. So
Yeah.
they're not beholden to GPUs and NVIDIA anymore. These are very specific chips to what they're trying to accomplish, and they control the supply line. Now they control personal data. Google built a moat. They built a really interesting moat that's going to be very powerful for them. So, I don't know if there's any comments on that. I mean,
No,
NVIDIA's
if
been a great stock to me personally. We are just talking about that Michael, but this is an interesting move by Google.
Yeah, agreed. The flipping into Siri, I think, is brilliant. It was garbage. It just ran even before AI. Did any of you guys ever use Siri?
I have not because I'm on Android, but
Okay, I
I
never
have
used
an
it.
iPhone and I cannot stand it. I can't stand
Kind of like
Siri. It's
kind of like
useless.
Clippy. I never used it,
Yeah.
and I wish. This a slight tangent, but we'll pull it back to AIs that are working and those that aren't. Um, Alexa's the same way.
yeah,
Garbage. And
she got an upgrade though, a
she
little
did.
better.
I don't know if it's a little slower. I don't know if it's much better, but you think about moats and you think about the amount of data that Amazon has about you. It should be so much better, but it was not. Siri should be so much better. It was not. Microsoft Copilot should have been so much better. It was not. And then now you get these kind of who's gonna be the go forward ones. And I think Apple was smart with Gemini.
Yeah. So okay. So the announcement was this month that Apple just they just capitulated on whether or not they're going to get in the AI race anymore, and Siri is now going to be powered by Gemini. That was the big announcement. The interesting stat that I saw out of that, ChatGPT has 2.5 billion daily queries. I didn't know this stat though. Siri has 1.5 billion in themselves. So even though we think it's a little stupid, in general, the mass population is using the heck out of Siri. And if those are all now going to be powered by Gemini, I mean, like that is half of the queries now being taken up by Gemini, and daily being powered by Gemini. Like that is a huge announcement. And the popularity of the iPhone 17. Did you upgrade yet? Either of you to the 17?
No,
Yeah, we did because they basically gave it away.
They gave it away, and there were so many people that had these upgrade credits. It bumped Apple's enterprise value or market cap to over 4 trillion just on the popularity.
The boys needed upgrades on their phones, and then my wife was on a work plan, and she didn't get an upgrade. She was like a 13 or something. And we ported all of them over, got all the upgrades, paid a little bit up front, but they made it, it was like an offer you couldn't refuse.
But like hardware wise, it was complete. It was like the perfect phone hardware wise, had all the hardware in it that would run these AI applications. It just didn't have an AI application in it. Apple
Yeah.
Intelligence
Yeah.
was not going to be there. And now it does. And now it does. So it's going to be, we talked a lot about maybe prior podcasts. It's like, what is this new mobile phone? And so now it has Android. Now it has Apple. Gemini is going to be your voice when, hey, Siri, hey, Google, what do you think? That's a huge jump in market share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next story. So if Google's dominating, let's talk about what some of the other challenger brands, $1 trillion challenger brands. Right. So,
Just early stage startups,
yeah, early stage startups. All right, let's talk about this little startup. I think it's going to make it. Dario Amodei, Jack Clark, they started this company called Anthropic. Is doing pretty well. Anthropic has been much more vertical in their strategy. I saw an article. They announced recent partnerships with IBM and Accenture. And we're going to get into the healthcare, but like they have 40%. This is a study by Menlo Ventures that they have 40% of the enterprise market. Insane. Insane. And it's all because of this vertical narrow use, um, access to the company's data, like very, very. So one of them, the big one was the move into healthcare. Suprit, do you want to unpack a little bit about what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Because they're tackling the pieces of healthcare that are really important, like workflow heavy pieces of healthcare, right? I think healthcare doesn't have I wouldn't say it's a data bottleneck or a data issue. It's more about, how you use that data to drive workflow. And I think what they've done through their recent announcements is help really, universal pain points in the US healthcare market, at least, like things like authorizations or helping physicians kind of speed that part of it up, integrating with payers and those networks. So they're really addressing these pain points that everybody struggles with and that cause delays. And then, I mean, I think the most interesting thing they did was allow users to plug into their ecosystem. So I can go in there and I can pull in, I can access my EHR data from different systems and I can see it all in one place. And that's always been a problem, right? Because if you've lived in 3 different cities or if you go to different providers, you never get a universal view of your health. And so when you ask questions about it through digital health applications, you're probably not getting the best answer because it's not looking at a holistic view. So I think they've really tackled this in a powerful way. And I think it's going to allow for a lot of early stage companies too to develop solutions that are going to be powerful in this world. So again, I think that addressing this and impacting workflow is important. I think that they're also going to impact coordination of care, which is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think this is a great move. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all
Well,
plays out and how people use it.
you brought up prior auth. I don't know if our audience knows what that means. Do you want to like unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the simple way to look at it is, everybody has some type of insurance, right? Whether it's through employer or you got it through the marketplace or even Medicare, Medicaid. And all the plans have different coverages for different procedures. And not everybody has the same coverage. And not every provider or doctor takes the same insurance. So a lot of times when you make an appointment, you have to figure out if the service you're going in for is covered by your insurance or not. And and to what extent it's covered. Right. And I think that helps people understand what their out-of-pocket cost could be. And it helps providers understand what the cost for delivering that service could be, what the revenue they might get from that would be. So it helps them with revenue projections, cost projections, things like that. And right now, a lot of times you go to the doctor and somebody picks up the phone in this modern day, calls an 800 number, waits on hold, reads off your it's such an inefficient process, right? So again, I think it comes back to streamlining workflow, and that's where it'll be successful because they're not just a point solution. They're
That is
actually trying to impact it.
That's super timely for some of the stuff we're working on right now. Take a quick tangent and tie it back to AI, but that authorization step, not just for the patient, but like between practices. Like you're making a referral. Are you referring somebody? Is that insurance accepted? If you've received a referral, can you accept it or not? There's all types of things in that workflow for that patient journey where insurance validation is really important. There's a company that does that. It's called Avality. You familiar with these guys?
Sure, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
There's
the only ones on this call that are or who are
yeah, we're
listening
gonna
even
keep
that
it
know
on
what that
that.
is. But yes,
Their CEO is on our board, and I had dinner with him right before the holidays. So this is super top of mind for what we're doing. But then the application of AI gets into these two big use cases, and Suprit, you just talked about it. There's the consumer use case, which is more of I think where ChatGPT is going to go. It's the self-diagnosis. It's the WebMD AI version, right? Where
Yep.
everybody's going to go in and WebMD their own symptoms, and it's going to be better now because it's AI. But there's still a little bit of is the AI allowed to offer some type of treatment or diagnosis? And a year or two ago, it was doing it, and then a lot of them have throttled that back a little bit in terms of uh, safety guardrails. Like we're not a doctor, we can give you some ideas, but we're not going to go too much further. But there inevitably will go that way where it's going to be WebMD, MDAI, whatever it's going to be. There's that use case. The Claude use case, the Anthropic use case, the enterprise use case gets into the can I use these tools to build healthcare applications,
Yeah.
which is like I was saying, super top of mind for what we're working on right now, where we want to adopt these tools, not just in a corporate environment, but also on the engineering team. You quickly run into okay, are these tools compliant to be using in an environment where there may be PHI floating around? And if you're doing software development, you have databases that are going to have PHI in them, or you may be dealing with documents or
and
integration.
define what PHI is for everybody.
Personal health care information. It's your
Highly
sensitive
illegal
data.
to divulge, right?
It's protected. And if you start using a tool set that interacts with that type of data, those tools have to be HIPAA compliant for how they deal with things like PHI. There's a legal risk there. And a lot of these AI tools do not want you using them in that environment because they won't assume some of the risk. And the way that works when you're building software is those tools, those vendors have to sign what's called the BAA, meaning we understand that you're using our tools to potentially touch PHI. Therefore, there are certain standards that we apply on how we treat data, how we integrate, and our security and our policy that supports that. If you can't get that vendor to sign that, then you can't use that tool. So that's been a barrier for adoption of how do engineering teams and product teams use these AI tools because you run right into that barrier. We just did our AI tool evaluation and we went with Cursor, who's a competitor, because they would sign a BAA. But this was right before the Claude for Healthcare came out just a couple weeks ago at JP Morgan. And I was just yesterday, I was talking to the team about this. I'm like, what do we think about this? And they're like, "It just came out. We're looking at it, whatever." But the preference from an engineering standpoint would be to use Claude.
Mm.
But we couldn't. This is a big change and we're evaluating it right now.
God, that's fascinating. Well, so like one of the bottlenecks, as I understand from prior author, you guys are way closer to this than I am because I've signed a lot of BAAs and I've done a lot, but it was always like, hey, just get a patient to us. But in terms of like these workflows, the bottleneck, as I understand, is just the provider's access to the patient's data in order to get it to the insurance. And it's a lot like the personalization we were just talking about. If I'm able to connect my wearable information, my charts, which is the Epic EHR information, all of that data, like there is a very complete health picture of the patient. It makes that prior auth like incredibly easy for the provider now. Just like, oh, just give us your data, give us your insurance, and all of a sudden, like that's really fast, and I can get the continuum of the care that I need. That's great for the consumer if they're willing to give up that information.
I think there's something in there
It's great for the
that
provider. I mean, obviously, they're gonna be able to turn revenue a lot faster.
there's also a risk in there for the provider. And I think where these tools go is that, I mean, look, the ideal world is you're wearing a wearable that signals that, okay, you have a problem with XYZ, right? If all your health records are in one place, let's say it's in a cloud-based environment and or all these things are integrating, it's not just going to say like flag that you have a potential issue. What it should do is then go find an in-network provider for you, connect to your calendar, schedule an appointment for you with a high quality provider with good
Yes.
reviews that's in it needs to do that. That's the gap. That's scheduling, identification of a provider and scheduling. Nobody wants to do that. No person wants to take the time, right? Think about all the times where you probably should have gone to see a doctor and you're like, I'll do it next week. I'll do because finding it is a pain. Then going onto your insurance carrier website to see who's in network is a pain. Then finding the doctor who has an appointment in the next month is a the 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 person who figures this little piece out to make it easier for the patient, they're going to be the ones that win because then you control the patient and where they go from then on out. And I think that's what this Claude announcement is finally going to give us the ability to do is start putting these pieces together.
Well, from a marketing perspective, then the
Yeah,
providers
exactly.
have to now inform the LLMs that,
Yeah,
well, I'm good for this and I'm worthy to be matched to these queries.
exactly.
Because I'm already
Exactly.
using all the LLMs. I'll take my I use the Amazfit strap, the Helio. Have you seen those? It's the Whoop competitor, but it's non-subscription, so I love it. But I'll take that data like, hey, I only use it for sleep, but I'm trying to see my heart rate variability. I'm just like, what does this mean for me? What should my workout be? You know, I'm already using it for these preventative health means. I'm already using the LLM, and then it always tells me I'm not a healthcare provider, but
Yeah.
here's right on
Yeah.
what you should do.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Why wouldn't it? And to your point, it is very frustrating when I ask my neighbor, like, "Who did you see for your knee?" And now I can't see that guy because I'm not in network, or it took me 48 hours just to even get somebody on
Yeah.
the phone to ask about it.
Well,
Um,
it shifts the
this is
dynamic
a big
too, to your
win.
point on marketing. Like, if I'm a provider group or a provider system or whatever, I need to take this into consideration, right? I mean, just like any other business of meeting your consumers where they are, if people are in this environment looking for solutions or looking for help, then providers who not just accept that, but also adjust for it and maybe deploy their own technologies and tools that, integrate this data and are more proactive in managing patient bases, then they're able to follow new business models. Maybe they're able to get into more risk-based structures where they can take on bigger populations and manage things more effectively. I think it opens up an entire world here that we're going to see a lot of change in over the next, 12, 18, 24 months.
No, this has been so I talked to Kerry Cunningham. He's a consumer behavior expert, especially in the B2B space, and he's talking about enterprise buying behavior. This is going to be the trend in healthcare too. The single provider, like the onesie twosie provider, they're not going to have the resources to plug into this new technology and market themselves and to match for these. They're just not. So like here in Atlanta, we have Resurgence, large orthopedic group, large marketing budget. They're going to be able to inform the LLMs, and they're going to be able
Yeah.
to work with Claude, not against it, and they're going to be able the ones to get matched. I think I definitely worry about challenger, smaller groups being able to compete in this. It's going to take resources to get recognized in this new world of being matched or to actually get patients.
Yeah, I'm more excited about it from, I think, how we started the conversation around the interoperability,
Mm.
workflow, how are health systems working with each other, with specialty practices, how are they using it to engage with their patients who they've already acquired? I think that's going to be very rich. Like, how do you access your medical records? That workflow interoperability, I think, is going to be really interesting for AI. On the consumer side of it, you get into the, like, how do you find a provider, which is kind of what you're getting at. Like, do the smaller providers figure out how to capture healthcare consumers through that. I don't know how that's going to work. I do think there's going to be if you're doing self-diagnosis, how does that turn into, well, it sounds like you're sick, go to this person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of oof. Then you get into some weird stuff, and we can tie this to the open AI and ad revenue. But it's the same thing. If you're doing self-diagnosis and you're getting valuable information about you may or may not have some condition, that very next step is either for the healthcare consumer to ask that question, who should I go to? Or for the AI to automatically suggest it. And you get all kinds of issues with that from a regulation standpoint. But that's what's going to happen with other purchasing things, going back to the OpenAI stuff with ad
Yeah.
revenue. And I remember we did a podcast and we talked about it's inevitable that they're going to have to, it's going to go ad supported. And we talked about, God, I hope they just make it subscription based and don't try to market it. I don't know. What do you guys think about that one?
That's one point I want to make on the interoperability, like so these different systems. I want to, because I think that's an important point. If I walk into an urgent care and I'm a candidate for a heart somewhere down the line, I'm coming in for a $125 visit to an urgent care. And if the health system doesn't keep that data or know about my heart thing, they're losing $1 million revenue opportunity. Like that's the power of like what this data, this interoperability, this data sharing. If hospitals get really smart, I mean, some like understand the power of their primary care, how it drives tertiary care revenue. Like some like get that. I would say the vast majority don't because it is so fragmented. I went over here to this chain, AFC urgent cares like here in the South. So I went there, but like that data is just sitting with them. It's not being shared with Piedmont, a major health system here in the South. How much does Piedmont care about that $125 visit for $1 million heart transplant down the road? Right. So I don't know. That's just I don't know. Maybe it's gross talking about these numbers and health, but that is largely what these hospitals need to think about. But
Yeah.
Well, and I think just on top of that, the payer is really the consistent force in this, right? Because you might go to one place for your urgent care visit and a hospital for your transplant.
Great
The
point.
one consistency in there is that the payer remained the same, right? And so what does this visibility give them? What does it provide them? What does it allow them in terms of setting reimbursement rates or negotiating with these providers and really flipping the script? Because, Nick, you could have XYZ plan and that plan could be accepted at Piedmont and Emory, and XYZ may reimburse Piedmont at $1 million and they may reimburse Emory at $750,000. So they may be wanting to drive you in one place versus the other. So I think it brings up things like cost transparency, reimbursement. I mean, there's a
that's another
whole
great one.
world here that I think is opening up now.
Well, no, I won't give the name, but my great provider, they send me weight loss kits for free. I'm okay. I'm okay. Like you obviously don't know who I am, but you're not even looking at my data. You're just sending out this blanket healthcare, like this blanket preventative weight loss kit because you think
Great
that's going to
thought, poor execution.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so 70% of your population that you cover is largely overweight.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm worried about way other things. So like, don't send me those marketing messages, Mr. Payer. I have other things. I'm worried about my knees. I'm worried about my shoulders clicking. Like that's the stuff you should be worried about with me. And that's going to be way more profitable for the providers if you got on that. Sorry. Hey, Michael, I interrupted. You were going to say something.
No. You tapped into a couple things. And I love that this turned into more of a healthcare AI discussion because this is kind of like, this is my world. But the Suprit, you were talking about this, the price transparency and that reimbursement intelligence is so opaque right now. And it's so convoluted and complicated. When most people hear about things like price transparency, it's usually from the consumer standpoint, which is this idea of if I'm going to go get healthcare, like I should treat it like I'm getting, an oil change or I'm evaluating a car repair, who's cheaper, right? I want to know who's cheaper, but I want to know who's better. So I want reviews and I want prices. And you would think about, getting a knee replacement and like you're buying something on Amazon, right? Like you're reading reviews and you know what the best cost is and You'll pay a little bit more for something that had a higher review. So I'm going to go get my knee replacement from that person. That's how people think of price transparency and how healthcare, quote unquote, should work. But it's really more about how do health systems understand what their prices are? How do they understand what their competitors' prices are? How do insurers understand reimbursement rates? Or how do health systems understand how they're getting reimbursed? How are they renegotiating with insurance companies? And putting some type of an AI on that to provide some intelligence. It's like you need it, because without it, it's really, I mean, it's impossible. It's transparent, but it's not understandable. And when we tried to pass regulation to make reimbursements and prices quote unquote transparent, we made them transparent, but you can't read it because there's too much of it. And it's apples and oranges and bowling balls, and you can't look at it. So this idea of making something that's very, very complicated transparent doesn't actually make it usable.
That's fascinating. I want to share this chart from Menlo Ventures. Have you guys seen this? So
Wow.
at least healthcare is on this. Like they're spending. So enterprise AI spending has quadrupled year over year. So I think boardrooms, management, everything is. If you don't have an AI in your tool or you're not maximizing, it's not gonna get into CapEx or OpEx at all. And healthcare is onto this. I mean, there's so many inefficiencies. This is actually really exciting to me. I'm glad that, AI is going to take a crack at because, the only people making money in healthcare are the drug companies for the most part. Our hospitals are getting crushed. The consumer's getting crushed with higher premiums. This could actually fix a lot of it.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? You want to talk ads?
Talk ad spend in OpenAI. How did that hit everybody?
Breaks my heart a little bit. As an organic agency, I love the moral high ground that when I ask my robot buddy who's the best, but like this is another thing. When I talked to Carrie Cunningham, I don't think people, in B2B particularly, I don't think people trust AI just yet. So on the visibility side, so what Carrie's data was pointing out is that when you're making your short list of vendors, I thought this was fascinating. You're making your short list of vendors. It's who you had prior experience with. You're not using AI to give you a recommendation of your top 4 vendors because most of the buyers, they're buying groups. And let's face it, they're typically men and women, our age group, lots of experience. They've worked with lots of different vendors. I know the 4 that we should talk to. And what he was saying, 80% of the time, who wins the deal is the number 1 vendor on your list, pre-discovery call. And so what he was saying is where AI comes in, and 90% of the time AI is involved in the sales process. It's in that middle. Show me pricing, show me reviews, show me charts, show me it. And this was a funny case that the AI used in enterprise was, it's largely a topic I'm already familiar with. So I can tell when the AI is lying to me or where something doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So there's just not a lot of like B2B buyer trust of AIs. Like, oh, well, and I think there's with the economy and with the disruption with the technology, there's just not like a lot of risk taking going on. Like I'm going to pick the 4 stalwarts. I know the one who definitely is not going to get me fired. And I'm going to build my case with AI around that. That's interesting. So where does it go from here? Like, where do ads go? I don't think ads play a huge part in that. So on the awareness side, I think it'll help some people get into the short list that wouldn't normally be there. And let's say they only have a 10, 20% chance of winning. At least as a marketer, you got to be there. You got to take that 20% and run. You have to be there. If not, you're not going to even get noticed. So I think ads will be great. I think even with ads on AI or not, I don't click the ad. I don't talk to sales until I go through that middle part. Like, show me the benchmarks, show me they're good. I'm not talking to Michael's new company that he loves so much until I've compared them with the 4 other on the list. And then I will talk to his salesperson, give up my email, give up my time, and present him to my 10 other people in my buying group.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense from a B2B perspective, right? I think where the ads come in is on the B2C side, where I think that's
Sure,
where
yeah.
they become impactful. And it's funny because yeah, we had a discussion, what was it, early last year? And we all said they're coming. We know they're saying they're not going to put ads on, but you're going to have to monetize it. And ads are, it's a no brainer, right? Like I think one of the articles we were looking at said, it'll exclude health and sensitive targets. Yeah, for now,
for now.
it's there's too much revenue sitting out there to pop ads in to just say no, we're going to take the moral high ground and not display ads here.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening.
it breaks my heart a little bit, um, especially coming from OpenAI, where like if Google did it, you'd be like, well, okay, like I get it,
Yeah,
AdWords, got it. Okay. But the whole journey of OpenAI from an open nonprofit to the
To a
leading,
maximum for profit.
yeah, not just for profit, but like this the furthest example of for profit, which is advertising, and you just go, really, like that's where we're at. And from a consumer side, you have to worry about a couple things. I think there's a user experience side of it, where now is it interrupting the conversation because there's ads around it. Then you instantly get into the, can I trust this information? Where they're going to say the ad has nothing to do with, or like the advertisers do not impact our response. And then you're going to kind of call that into question. You kind of cease to become like a neutral arbiter in answers when there's somebody paying you right next to it. And it's the same thing. People, you could talk about the trustworthiness of news or media, where they're taking huge advertising dollars from certain sectors, and it absolutely impacts coverage. And after you start taking that money and inserting it into an AI discussion, it just, to me, it's like, yeah, like, are we here already? What did it take? Like 3 years? We're here. Yeah, I don't love it.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, would you buy an open AI ad or would you buy a TikTok ad if you're a B2C company?
Depends. Nobody knows what the ROI on an OpenAI ad is yet. It could
That's
be
true.
extremely good. Like, however they're introduced inside the discussion. I mean, you think about how Google works, right? I mean, there's a reason why the ads are number one.
That's real estate. Yep.
So how effective would a supposedly, unbiased advertisement injected at the
Yeah.
top of the chat results? Like, we don't know what the ROI is on it. Like, are people willing to click on it? Do they think it's the actual result, or do they think it's ad supported? Because Google gets plenty of revenue because they put the ad at the top and people don't really realize it's the paid one.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Look,
And
it's,
they
it's,
click
it's
on it,
more and
right?
more
That
hidden.
first
Yeah.
one that came up, I got.
yeah.
So it's to be determined, but like, I don't like it. I don't know.
I think it adds another persona group to advertising. Quite frankly, like you brought up a good point. Like, would you rather advertise on Chat GPT or TikTok? It's just a different user group too. It depends on what you're trying to push and who you're trying to reach, right? Like, I'm not on TikTok, but I am on Chat. So I think it introduces a new channel depending on the persona you're going after. But I do like, I think Michael, you're onto something. Trust is important, but, and maybe I'm a skeptic, but, or a pessimist in this world, but I'm starting to, what's the balance between trust, especially in healthcare, versus convenience? Like,
Uh,
if,
Mm,
convenience and access seem to be taking over what drives people's behavior. If you're
mm.
able to do something for me quicker, faster, if you're able to get me an appointment sooner, then I may be willing to go to that provider, even though I don't know them, versus somebody who I do know. So there's this balancing act between, do we trust these, what value does trust have versus convenience and access and things like that?
There's another thing that I think is going to happen. So let's go down this path real quick. It's a new medium. And if that medium opens itself up to advertisers, there's going to be these early adopters where you're going to try to figure out, what is the ROI? Does it work? But this doesn't remind me of 2011. And doing social media marketing, and people are like, "Who's on Facebook? Like, why is that gonna? I can't. Who's gonna buy anything from Facebook?" Or then it was like, well, there's like influencers on Instagram, and it's kind of it works, and there's this whole new thing that happened. But I remember very, very clearly in 2010, 2011, working in digital marketing and selling digital marketing technology, and it was so, who's on social media, right? Like, how's that going to work? And then it was like, can you prove an ROI on it? And then all the traditional media or search or PPC was showing you how it didn't work, right? We show how it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And then you know what? Kind of works. And here we are, 13, 14 years later.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
a new
so
media?
I'll
People are
give you the data that we're seeing from clients. So ads still work. PPC absolutely still works. The only difference in the AI, now I guess what realm that we're in or the time period that we're in is that before I click an ad, and so like let's say it is B2C. If it's commoditized, like this is why like Amazon pharmacy makes so much sense. That's a commodity. And if I'm able to buy something cheaper, faster, I will go in and click that ad for Amazon to give me my drugs and then going to Rite Aid. Okay, that makes total sense to me. But if there's any amount of education that needs to have, like, what is this? Or if the spend on it is a little risky, it's like it goes from $25 to like $150 a month or some type of like bigger purchase and some education that has to happen. Organic is still the baseline. Organic is still the baseline. So I wrote an article about this called Organic Still Keystone. Is it's the linchpin of all marketing. So before I click that ad, I'm going to check in on the LLM first. And in theory, that should be all organic. That should be all earned. So all of that information now that ChatGPT is going to refer to me about this product, consumer reviews, pricing, alternatives, other things. Before I click that ad and I buy, I'm able to check the organic search results or AI results based on that before I click the ad. So what happens is companies that have really good organic authority, like, hey, I got a good brand, I have lots of reviews, I sound really good, their ads crush. Their ads crush. But the ones that have so they just have an ad, but no organic authority or there's nothing about, like when ChatGPT goes, I don't really know much about them. There was one crappy review on Reddit about it. That ad is wasted. That ad is wasted. Where that ad might have performed before, it's wasted. And so what we're seeing a lot with our buyers, like organic traffic's down, but ads and direct traffic are way up because of the spend on, they're doing their case studies, they're exposing their pricing, they're making sure that they got good reviews, they're doing all the organic work. And like, trust me, that's not free. So
No,
it's organic, it's earned, but that takes a heck a load of work, writers, case studies, looking at your own data, writing stories that are interesting that can get picked up by to be cited. That is where the battle's happening. And that's where I think ads are going to be really powerful. So if you're a challenger brand, again, like, how do you get that authority quick? Because like it used to be, you were a challenger brand, you just put some ads up and you're gone. Unless you're competing on value and like this is like a very low risk sale. I think that's my only like nuance, I think, to that, Michael.
But I think what you're explaining is really interesting because it's almost like saying there's an extra step to the conversion, right?
Yes.
There's that, like, you have to account for that extra step, which I think brands should be aware of because it's going to impact their success in these channels, drastically. So I think that's a great point.
So let's say OpenAI does an ad. They expose the ad. It takes me zero time. Like, what's this ad? Who are they? Why should I consider it? Like, tell me everything you know organically that they put out there about this ad. I know they bought it, but there's going to be this whole organic earned piece.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That they're gonna have to deal with. So, buyer beware on ads. I would say if you have good authority, you have a good brand. This is the crazy thing about SEO. We just used to write like, hey, here's your keyword. Make sure you maximize for that and make sure it's on your website. No. Now you're writing for a robot that's presenting to a human.
Yeah.
And it's got to be good content. It's got to be legible, and you got to have good brand. We're investing in way more creative. We're technical usually in the SEO world, but now we're investing way more in writers and content and creative than we ever have.
I like how that actually has created a big improvement from how you used to do SEO
Hmm.
10 years ago, which was spamming keywords and pushing rankings and stuff where everybody knew that was, you know, hogwash. Everybody who was engaging in that knew that you're gaming the system. But what you
Yeah.
just described, Nick, was a way to establish more credibility. And the AI perhaps is enforcing some of that because it's not going to pick up slop. It's going to pick up, hey, are these trusted sources? Is this answering questions? And if so, that should help the performance of your ad. Just like, it's going to be an AI quality ranking, just like Google would have a quality score.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I don't know. We're done with that topic, man. We're running up on the clock here. But in terms of, did you guys follow at all what happened at CES or kind of what the trends going on there? I'm curious, guys' thoughts are. I love it that for us, it's more important that AI is going to enterprise. Like that's really these vertical use cases. Um, but it seems like everything's going into hardware these days. I don't know if you guys have noticed, like robots are all the rage. I mean, like maybe as the individual consumer, I didn't notice a difference. I got to be honest. I mean, like Gemini 3 was great. I mean, it's fine, but I can't tell the difference between like an operator in Claude and Grok versus a gem in Gemini. I can't really, I was like, they're all pretty, but so like to the general consumer, robot buddies, AI companions. I mean, like what these things are now seems to be, that was most of CES to me. It was like all these robots everywhere.
And
Does that affect you guys' life at all? Or is this like
now
pie in the sky?
we're not there yet, but I don't think that's too far away. I think the use cases are is it a consumer thing or is it going to help, with businesses? I mean, it seems like maybe it's a little early, but it's not. It seems like it's there. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the next time we do a podcast, I'll just have my robot sitting here. I'll be out playing golf or something like that. It could do the podcast for me.
How do we know you're not? How do I know you're not a companion right now? Like you're not just an
Fair.
avatar
That's
of
a fair
yourself you
point.
created. That's like a episode of Silicon Valley. I don't. Yeah.
We're probably at Silicon Valley level AI robotics right now,
Yes. Yeah.
right? you know, but that's the advancements that they've made in it. I can kind of see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think. I mean, do you guys still think the chat is going to be the interface, or is it going to be something different? I mean, I still like this layer of talking to the AI. This is where I'm excited about personalization. It's like,
Yeah.
make me the Google Sheet, manipulate the data for me. Like
Yes.
that's what I want. I want the chat then into some type of web browser interface where I'm able to actually play with the data. Human plus AI is really where I want to be. I want to get more enmeshed with making AI, making me more powerful.
Yeah. You want it conversational. You want it self-service. You want the power to have that flexibility to do. You still are putting thought into what you're doing, and you want your original kind of spin and things like that on that, which I think is probably like all of us are similar in that way. But it always, I think we always come back to this is what percentage of users do we really represent? Like, are we just like the 0.01 of people who want that and want to be able to control and create? Or are most people just like, I'm going to ask you a question and whatever answer comes back, I'm going to take it and run with it?
Yeah. Well, I'll tie it back to some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning. But if you put robotic AI like way out here in terms of where that's coming, and we're at like the Silicon Valley stage of it, where it's going to be geek stuff. It's going to be very experimental, not working, buggy. Clearly, it's out there, but like let's put that on this extreme. The average person or the average person in technology, I think they want to go back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is can I just have an AI that understands my Gmail really well, that can send emails by voice, that can respond to things, that can summarize things in a way that can create a calendar appointment, like those basic type of AI tasks.
Efficiency.
I don't need a robot. I don't need AR, VR. I don't need it. I just like, do you have access to, my credit card, my email, like my work. Can you help me get some of those tasks done? And you don't need a freaking robot to do that.
Yeah.
We're close, but we haven't gotten there yet in terms of like the day to day. Like, is it helping me? It's getting better, but like, let's solve that first, and then I'll worry about if I need a robot
Yeah.
to help me
Now
clean.
that's the better question, because just as a statistic, I really wonder, like, people that subscribe to one of these models, for me, the only reason I do it is for work. I don't think I would need a paid subscription for my personal life. I would use free versions. I would just switch. And if I ran out of credits, I just go to a different model. The reason I use it is because it has memory and
Hmm.
trying to keep a string of thought for my work. These enterprise applications make the most. That's what I guess, if I'm excited about 2026, is more vertical integration into like specific use cases. I mean, I love the conversation we had about Anthropic and healthcare and solving these big problems. Like, that is the most interesting to me. I don't, yeah, I talking to my Roomba and getting weather guidance. It's not a big deal to me. Any other predictions? Where we go from here? 2026.
Man, I don't, on again on the healthcare side, I think we're going to see massive improvements in workflow optimization for the first time in a long time in that industry, and I think that's going to be a game changer. I think the amount you can reduce friction and handoffs is going to drive. That's going to separate who uses AI effectively and actually grows, their business and their ability to serve patients versus those who are going to fall behind. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm here for it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to rolling it out more in the enterprise, HIPAA compliance for how we can partner with companies to build tools. And then I think on the consumer side, like I was saying, I want some of the early promises of AI to pan out on the agentic side to help me actually do stuff instead of just answer questions. Because I think it's got questions answering pretty well. And then I think the last thing would be, I would really like to see them solve the hallucination problem, which I
Mm.
am flabbergasted that this is still a problem to the extent it is when you have billions, if not trillions of dollars of investment going into AI, where you'd think it'd be 98, 99% good, but the hallucination rate, maybe topic for the next podcast, is how we're doing on hallucinations, but it's 20, 30% of the time you're fact checking the AI. I really hope in 2026 that gets resolved.
Yeah, I think that's a great summation of where we're at, because we were mentioning that, if I'm in a buying cycle as marketing, if I'm in a buying cycle, my end user is already pretty aware what they're shopping for, and they're going to be able to fact check, and they're not they're not taking newcomers. They're not going to take a chance that there's a hallucination. And so, that's always our appeal to our clients is, if you don't tell AI about you, and if you don't establish that authority and that credibility, if you're not working on your brand, if you're not writing, it's going to hallucinate, and hallucination kills deals. Hallucination kill deal on the marketing side. So, like, to your point, is like, that's a huge deal. I think grounding these RAG pipelines, this personalization, that's probably a good path forward. I hope they start figuring this stuff out. So
Good stuff, guys.
cool. Till next time. See you.
See you guys.
Thanks.